What's up, dudes? Max here. It is currently Tuesday morning at 12:23, and I'm back from the first day at E3, and I pretty much went straight to the Capcom booth and never left until the entire thing closed. So I got in about 6 hours. I spent at the Capcom booth playing Street Fighter V, and I played about a total of 40 matches. Tried a variety of characters, and the only character I had not used yet is Birdie, so you'll see a lot of Birdie footage that came from a lot of the Street Fighter stream that was earlier today. Some really good quality matches, and I didn't bother recording anything of myself because I figured there'd be so much footage of the game available for you guys to see, but I wanted to talk about it, so here's my initial first reaction and impressions to Street Fighter V. The biggest thing I want to talk about for the game is actually the visual aesthetic. Street Fighter V is really pretty. The graphics, I dare say, are pretty striking, and the biggest thing I think that the game has a problem with is shadows right now, and they're a little fuzzy. The entire engine looks like it is still getting tweaked. It has changed dramatically since we saw it in December, and the gameplay has dramatically changed since December, so we're probably going to see anything here to be looking a lot better as the game gets closer to its release date. The first thing you're going to notice when you first play Street Fighter V, and this is mostly going to be about gameplay impressions, because yes, the game is pretty good and it animates beautifully, like some of the best animations in a fighting game ever. They're really spectacular. The overall combat of the game, when you actually get into punching and kicking and executing specials and canceling off of low forward and essentially special canceling, normal canceling, all that kind of stuff that you do in Street Fighter games, it feels a lot different in Street Fighter V. There's a lot of hit stun and a lot of weight behind your attacks. However, the overall mobility of the characters, the jumping, the jump arcs, the amount of time it takes to get back down to the ground, the time it takes to jump, the dashing, things like that, and the walk speed feels overall slower for the game in general right now, and that could just be because there's only a few characters to choose from. So usually when you ask people, and I was talking to a lot of guys about this, and I was trying to get some impressions of everyone else that's playing it, and that's been played a lot of Street Fighters in the past, a lot of people responded with the same thing that I initially had, is that the game feels slow. However, if you compare Street Fighter V to Street Fighter IV side by side, it does not appear to be slow. It actually moves at a very similar speed, but when you attack people, that's where things get a lot different, and that's honestly where Street Fighter V feels dramatically different than almost any other Street Fighter game. Because of the amount of hit stun and the amount of block stun, these animations have a lot to them, and there's a lot more movement and fluidity within the looks of the fights. However, it means that you're kind of locked to a lot of these things quite a bit. Some moves have such insane startup, it's more than in any other Street Fighter game I've played, just a ridiculous amount of startup. And some heavy attacks have so much recovery that if you whiff it, you're going to get punished so hard. There's a new age of whiff punishing, and is going to be in Street Fighter V for you guys that understand what that means. So I don't think slow is an accurate term to call Street Fighter V. I'd say one of the better things I can use to describe it in one word is it feels heavy. It feels a lot heavier than any other Street Fighter game I've played in a while. And the more I thought about it, the first few games I played Street Fighter V, I absolutely loved it, about the first 5 games or so. And then I got the understanding of the V trigger mechanics, the V skills for every character, trying to figure out what they do, how they're beneficial, and eventually throwing in an alpha counter every once in a while to see how good that works. And you get used to it, and some characters have V skills and V triggers that are a lot better than others, and are a lot more interesting than others, and others are just kind of there, and they're not super useful, and they're effective, they do something, they stop time, but even with that stop time, it's not like Killer Instinct. I would say if you're using Instinct as an example, it's actually a lot different, because Instinct is a pretty distinct advantage for a lot of characters in Killer Instinct. You actually get to stop time completely, and your character's pretty beefed up within that time frame depending on who you choose. Instinct can actually change the pace of a fight dramatically, or you can just block it all and be pretty good after that. V-Trigger is not like that at all. This stuff is a mild boost to your character, and at the beginning I found them to be really freaking awesome, but at the end I really kind of wanted more out of what your V-Trigger could do and what certain V skills were for characters. I almost really wish that you can choose between like a V-ism, a Y-ism, and an X-ism. Like, I think that this game would fit that extremely well, kind of similar to the Alpha games, but more along the lines of it actually changing what you do. Anyway, that's something I would wish to happen, because it kind of feels like you figure things out fairly fast. What I was kind of picking up from Street Fighter the more I played it, the stuff that I was trying to do that I thought would be really cool and theory crafting just doesn't work. And when I was getting into some other things and just trying to try out new stuff instead of just having better spacing, zoning, and footsies, that seems to be the priority. I will say that when you actually play Street Fighter V, it plays out a lot like Street Fighter 4. And Street Fighter 4 doesn't play out like any other Street Fighter, to be honest. Street Fighter 4 kind of plays like Street Fighter 4, and I'd say that when you get to the core combat of Street Fighter V, it's they take a lot of things away from Street Fighter 4. You have those really specific no crouch techs, no backdash invincibility, stuff like that, and you essentially have this game that feels like a more simplified version of SF4. And I'd say that's what Street Fighter V actually really feels like. It goes back to more original roots of Street Fighter, and feels like it's somewhere in between Alpha 1 and Alpha and Street Fighter 2 Turbo in terms of mechanics. So everyone's got a super. A lot of characters are comboing to their super right now because supers are pretty dang good for the majority of the cast, doing a lot of damage. And in terms of combos and links, it is very hard, if not nearly impossible, to combo and hit confirm off light attacks in this game. Light attacks just pretty much combo into themselves and maybe into a special every once in a while, but doing like, you know, a light into medium or a light into heavy just doesn't work for the majority of the cast, except for Cammy. And Cammy can actually do a couple lights and do crouching medium punch and go into spiral arrow. There is not that same type of thing for all the characters. It works a lot differently, and Ryu's a great example of he just combos into his standing medium punch a couple of times, and it's super easy to do, and it does really good damage. The damage is also very freaking high in this game right now. It is almost the level of super turbo damage. You jump up, you can kick somebody in the face, do a low forward EX fireball, and it kind of takes away 30 to 35%. It is very damaging, and it's scary. The entire game is scary because everyone's taken so much damage that you see very defensive play, in my opinion. Like, some characters play kind of defensively right now in Street Fighter V, and I'm pretty sure this stuff is going to get tuned and tweaked over time. But when it comes to like how the overall game plays out, if you guys look at a lot of these matches, or you look at a lot of matches that were played by a lot of competitive pro players, their experiences with Street Fighter 4, so it's going to look a lot like Street Fighter 4, but I was also getting the feeling myself, because I'm not a huge Street Fighter 4 engine fan. I do like Street Fighter an awful lot, and I know that Street Fighter 4 plays very unique to that game, that type of gameplay style, and it does kind of carry over into Street Fighter 5. In summary, I think Street Fighter V looks absolutely amazing, but I'm not completely sold on its gameplay yet. I think that there's a lot more that they can do for some of the characters to make them really interesting, and right now it just feels kind of bare bones. It's a very early game right now. You guys are going to get to play this actually very soon. In just over a month, there's going to be a public beta available on the PlayStation 4 where you can test out the netcode, and it's one of the greatest things about this thing in Capcom and Capcom USA's involvement. They're doing the most brilliant thing where they're making sure the online experience is the best it possibly can be. I cannot commemorate them more for that, and I cannot commemorate this game any more for how brilliant a lot of the art is. The backgrounds are still getting worked on. It looks like they're not brilliant, but they're pretty dang cool. The lighting effects are fantastic. The shadows need a little bit of work, but man, the character models are freaking brilliant. They are absolutely gorgeous. You guys have no idea until you see the characters in this game animating and moving in 60 frames per second in front of you. It is freaking awesome. But in general, if there's one game that you guys would like to hear a comparison of this game to, and where I feel the game is going to evolve over time, I don't think this game should be compared to Street Fighter 4. It feels like it in some ways, and it feels like other games. It feels like Super Turbo. But in general, I would kind of say I'd compare this current version of Street Fighter V to a game that not a lot of you guys had probably played, and it's a game called Street Fighter 3 New Generation, and it's the first version, it's the vanilla version of Street Fighter 3, where it was followed up with Second Impact and Third Strike, where they adjusted the gameplay speed, the overall just kind of like fluidity of combat, and it just felt so much better as they increased the game to just different versions later on, and we eventually got Third Strike. I'm not going to say Third Strike is like the greatest Street Fighter game by any means. It's my favorite, one of my favorite fighting games, and I think it's actually not really a Street Fighter game. It breaks the mold a lot. But if you go play New Generation and you're familiar with the Street Fighter 3 series, you'll kind of get an understanding of kind of where this game is at right now. It's at this beginning pace where they're figuring things out and they're trying to understand how the combat is going to roll out, because as we know, this game was dramatically different only a few months ago. And a few months ago, it was a lot slower, and I'm pretty sure a feedback from a lot of guys at Capcom USA probably went into making the game speed a lot faster and making it more combative and things like that. And it does feel very heavy, and it does feel like your attacks are doing a lot of damage, because they are, but a lot of the times you're looking at these huge wind-ups and these giant animations, and the speed of everything just feels a lot slower when you're actually punching, kicking, and throwing fireballs. It's a different type of Street Fighter, and I think it can grow, just like Street Fighter New Generation did, leading up to its eventual release of Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, which is just a much better version of the overall gameplay system for that game. And this doesn't mean I don't dislike the game, and I'm actually very, very, very much looking forward to going back and playing it on day 2, and just trying to figure out new things with other characters and new setups, and better using my V skills and better using the V trigger stuff. And I'm going to be probably sticking it out with Charlie or Nash for the most part, just because I find Ryu to be so bare bones. Like, it's really weird after playing Ryu and Smash Brothers over the past couple of days and being like, man, this Ryu is freaking awesome. He's so cool. And he doesn't have any, like, he doesn't have a lot of that really cool stuff in Street Fighter V. He doesn't have a red fireball. He doesn't have the donkey kick. I don't know. It's just Street Fighter V Ryu is this super, like, rock solid, and he punches you and it hurts, and he's thick and meaty, and the guy's heavy. And I think that's the best term I can use to describe Street Fighter V, is that the game feels very heavy in comparison to other Street Fighters. That's about it, guys. I don't want this to go on for too long. I recognize this is going on for like over 11 minutes now. One of the other big things with the game, why I'm not like immediately turned on to just be like super excited about everything, and I'm a little cautious and waiting for them to do updates, is because there's really not any character amongst the roster that I love right now. I'm not a big fan of Birdie's redesign. Never been a big fan of Birdie in general. I think Charlie looks very cool, but the way he plays in game is just a little weird right now, and I'm gonna force myself to try to get good with him. And I'm thinking like forcing myself to try to get good with the character never really works out, so I'm still waiting for some really cool freaking character, and we all know it's gonna be Ken. Like, come on, like it's Ken. Like, let's just get Ken to look super freaking cool in this game, and not like He-Man from Street Fighter 4, and it'll make me a lot happier about the entire situation. And I got a pretty cool picture. I actually ran into Ruben Langdon. He came up to me and said hi, and it was pretty crazy because I got a picture with him, and he's been taking pictures at E3 with him and this little Ken doll that he's been sporting at the show. And I saw him at the Capcom booth, but he worked on Devil May Cry. He's Dante as well, so I'm just going to say it's an infinite convenience that he's got this little Ken toy, and he's walking around the show right now with this thing, and there's no Ken in Street Fighter yet, and he is the voice of Ken, so who knows, maybe it's a clue, maybe it's a hint. I hope it's true, and I hope we get some other characters fairly soon, and I'll talk about those characters that I want to see most in Street Fighter V in a later video. Thank you dudes very much for watching, and thank you for the feedback on the impressions. I'm really curious to see what you're going to say about the game when it comes out, and you're actually able to play it in just over a month on PS4. My name is Maximilian, and I'll see you next time.